All right, let's jump right in. When we think about history, our minds usually go to like epic battles, famous kings and queens, the big stuff, right? But what if I told you some of the most amazing stories are actually hidden away, tucked right into old family documents? Well, today, we're going to unlock one of those.
I mean, really think about it for a second. What incredible story is hiding in your family's past? Because every single family has one. A real saga, full of big moves, big dreams, love, and heartbreak. And that's exactly what we're diving into today. One family's story. And who knows? It might just make you want to go digging into your own.
So what's our guide for this whole thing? It's this incredible document, a family history that traces a single line all the way back 6 generations. This thing is basically our treasure map. It's going to take us from a tiny village in Tamil Nadu all the way over to the towns of Kerala, as we follow the life of one pretty extraordinary guy.
Okay, so first things first. To really get this story, we've got to go back to the beginning. We're starting our journey in a village called Thinniyam to see exactly where our main character's roots are. All right, let's quickly trace the family line here. So it all kicks off with the first known ancestor, Anatharama Iyer. Then you've got his son, Veera Raghava, who was a Mirazdar, a pretty respected landowner, and then comes his son, Dharma Raja. But it's the 4th generation where things get really interesting. That's where our story truly begins, with a man named Nageshwara Iyer. So Nageshwara Iyer was born way back in 1839. And get this, by the time he was just 20 years old, he basically looked around his small village and thought, nope, this isn't for me. He knew he was destined for something much bigger than just carrying on the family business. He was ready to go out and make his own way.
And wow, what a path he forged. I mean, this is the point where the story just totally shifts gears. It goes from being a quiet family history to an incredible, almost modern-day startup story set in the 19th century. Because Nageshwara Iyer, well, he was about to become a full-blown cotton tycoon.
Okay, so the year is 1859. Nageshwara and his brother decide they're going into business. And their starting capital? Just 500 rupees. Now, I know what you're thinking. 500 rupees, that's nothing. But remember, we're talking about the mid-1800s here.
Yeah, to really put that into perspective for you, that 500 rupees from back then, today, that would be worth somewhere around 40 lakh rupees. 40 lakhs. So no, this wasn't some casual side hustle. This was a massive, high-stakes investment right from the get-go.
So what was the game plan? How did he pull it off? Well, first, he made a strategic move to Thaliparambra in Kerala. Then, he starts sourcing this really fine cotton from Tirunelveli. And here's the brilliant part. He found a perfect niche market, selling these high-quality dhotis called pamundu to the super-wealthy Nambudiri Brahmin families. And as the money started rolling in, he made another smart move and diversified into money lending. The guy was building an empire.
But, and this is a huge but, just as his business was reaching incredible heights, his personal life was about to come crashing down. It's like all the good fortune he had in business, it just didn't follow him home. What was coming was absolutely heartbreaking.
I mean, just look at this timeline. It's absolutely devastating. In 1877, his first wife, Tamara Guri, passes away, leaving him a widower at just 38, with 4 little kids to raise on his own. So he remarries. But then, just a few years later, his second wife, Sita Lakshmi, also dies. Can you imagine? He had to marry a 3rd time, not for love, but just to have someone to help him manage his home and his children.
The family document itself puts it in this really powerful way. It says that while his business was booming, his personal life was, and I'm quoting here, cast in a tearful and distressful shadow. It's just such a stark reminder, isn't it? That you can have all the success in the world in one part of your life, but it offers absolutely no protection from pain and loss in another. Okay, so this brings us to the next chapter. His 3rd marriage to a woman named Annapurni finally brought a bit of stability to his life. And with that, he started to step back from the day-to-day business. His focus shifted to his family and, of course, to the enormous fortune he'd built, a legacy that he really hoped would take care of all his kids for generations to come. And when I say enormous fortune, I am not kidding. The scale of his wealth is just staggering. If you were to value his estate today, it would be worth over 15 crore rupees. I mean, think about that. All built from that single 500 rupee investment. It's absolutely mind-blowing.
So now comes the massive challenge. How do you divide a legacy that big? He had kids from all 3 of his wives, a total of 11 children. He really tried to be fair about it, even setting aside 2 extra shares for his third wife, Annapurni, to thank her for her care. But you know how these things go. With that many people and that much money on the line, you can almost feel the conflict brewing.
And yep, just as you'd expect, the document says dissensions in the family cropped up. Fights started breaking out. And here's the really tragic irony. The very fortune he had worked his entire life to build, the wealth that was meant to secure his family's future, ended up becoming a source of severe mental agony for him in his old age.
And that brings us to the final and kind of sad chapter of his life. This man who had traveled so far, who had built an absolute empire from nothing, he found that his last years weren't defined by all that incredible success. Instead, they were defined by the chaos and the fighting that his success had created.
In fact, the fighting got so bad that in 1907, he actually moved his new family away from the main family home in Thaliparambra just to try and find some peace and quiet. He came back for one last visit in 1909, and that's where he passed away, leaving behind a young wife and 6 kids, the youngest of whom was only 1 year old.
You know, the person who wrote this family history has this really amazing reflection on the whole journey. They point out that the family's entire identity had changed. They've gone the whole circle, from being landowners to business people during Nageshwara's time, and then finally to just regular workers or professionals in the modern era. It's incredible. His one life story is like a perfect snapshot of the massive changes that were happening all across India.
So in the end, Nageshwara Iyer's life was a story of just incredible ambition, crushing loss, and a legacy that was, well, complicated. It really proves that the most powerful history isn't always in the textbooks. Sometimes it's right there, in our own family trees. Which brings us back to that first question. What about you? What's your family's journey? Because I promise you, the story's there, just waiting for you to find it.